Have you ever wondered why emotionally abusive mothers treat their daughters differently? I want to share with you the woman behind the mask and why, if you were the daughter of an emotionally abusive mother, you were treated differently. Welcome to the Divorce Sanctuary. I'm Elizabeth, author of Finding Lily and the A to Z of emotional abuse. On this channel, I talk about healing from emotional abuse and divorcing emotionally from the abuser. I want to remind you that love should be unconditional, and divorcing emotionally and healing the original wound is life-changing. I want to help you understand and process what's happening inside you and help you discover the best tools to heal on a deeper level, becoming the best version of yourself. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're returning, welcome back and thank you. And thank you so much for all my new subscribers recently. It's amazing. Thank you for your continued support. If you have any tips that you think would be helpful to others, then please add them in the comments below. You can also share your stories as well. I want to remind you this isn't a diagnostic tool. I'm not going to say this video is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing about this behaviour is entertaining. If you believe that you're being manipulated, please reach out to a professional that can help you break away from this toxic relationship and help you set and keep strong boundaries. Have you ever wondered why emotionally abusive mothers treat their daughters differently? You might be the son of an emotionally abusive mother and think, actually, that all fits for me. Society gives us an image of a good mother. So she gives her children a grounded environment and a good education, and she's consistent and nurturing. She provides stability. But what if that wasn't your experience of a mother? Emotionally abusive mothers are con artists. They are very good at manipulating their family, their friends, their daughters into believing that they are a good mother. And her ability to hide behind a mask can take her daughter years, even decades, to really understand who she is or who she was. It might be that they seek therapy for another failed relationship and then start to uncover the web of lies and deceit that went on throughout their lives. The emotionally abusive mother is unavailable. She isn't there for her daughter emotionally or physically. And this might be something that she learned from her own mother, another wounding she received through her childhood. And yes, YouTube might not have been available with the information on emotional abuse or narcissism, but something stopped you in your tracks to question why you might keep repeating the relationship patterns that you do. You might have vowed never to mother your children in the way that you were treated or speak to them in the same way. So if you on some level knew that the mothering or parenting wasn't good enough, supportive, and was very controlling, they would have had the same opportunity to do that as well. This is my personal opinion. I've heard so many statements, but the opportunities weren't around for them to self-heal at that time, or people didn't do that self-help back then. And there were a lot of women that were parenting when YouTube didn't exist or had very little content, and they might have made the conscious decision to break the pattern. It was an inner guidance that told them that something was wrong. Their mothers were inconsistent with them and any siblings, but particularly it's the daughters who, for a lot of people, respond to my videos, particularly the one on mother and scapegoating, held that role. Emotionally abusive mothers are manipulative, they're controlling, they're jealous, and they parent from their wounds. They abandon their daughters emotionally, dumping all the shame that they have onto that daughter and ultimately betraying them, robbing them of a childhood and shoving them into a world with unrealistic views, attracting the same or similar people into their lives who will continue to abuse them. The emotionally abusive mother isn't able to understand her daughter's needs. She's so busy hiding behind a mask that shields her own insecurities. Her daughter grows up intuitively understanding the needs of her mother over the needs of herself. She learned from an early age to tiptoe around her mother in order not to cause her mother's narcissistic rage. The daughter learns to become independent, something she then becomes criticised for. But the daughter has no one to guide her and to help her mature emotionally. She learns to become self-taught, watching on, wondering what she has to do to get the attention bestowed on her siblings. The emotionally abusive mother has created a persona, hiding who she really is. And because society creates an image, it's really hard to believe that mothers can be abusive towards their own children. She has missing parts. and parts that she doesn't like about herself, and she uses her daughter to project onto. And it's more than likely her daughter is used as a scapegoat. The messages her daughter receives is that she's not worthy and that the only attention she's allowed is negative. The emotionally abusive mother expects everything to be done her way. And if that doesn't happen, she needs someone to take the blame. Nothing will ever be her fault, so she blame shifts to protect her fragile sense of self. And throughout this video, I have a few examples where I have changed the names to protect people. Emily was Anna's first child. It was a difficult birth, nearly resulted with intervention. When Emily was delivered, not only was she bruised and swollen, but one of her feet was flat against her leg. Anna felt shame at the imperfect child, that she was unable to ever bond with her properly. When Emily's brother came along 3 years later, Anna was proud. She'd been able to bring a son into the family, and a few years later she had twin girls. Anna received so much attention after their birth. Emily knew she was different, and by the age of 8 she knew how to keep out of her mother's way, and she knew that if anything went wrong that she would get the blame. After sharing a few times, but I wasn't even there, only to be told by her mother, "You're the oldest, you should know better." By the age of 8 she knew not to argue with her mother. And as she became a mother herself, she vowed never to repeat the patterns. Eventually, she realised how deep the trauma ran from her childhood and decided to create a different reality for her family. She knows she made mistakes, but she was aware of them and did her best to correct them and point her children in the right direction, wanting the trauma of her family to stop with her. The emotionally abusive mother can be cruel. She can humiliate her daughter. She may even actively encourage her other children to behave in the same way. Annie was the eldest daughter to Jacqueline, who had 2 other children. Her middle daughter, Kitty, would ridicule her elder sister and tell everyone that they would meet that Annie was adopted. Jacqueline never stopped her daughter. Annie said that she lost a lot of her life trying to find a way to be accepted by her family. She said she always felt like she was on the edge looking in at her mother, her father, and her 2 sisters playing happy families. As she started to realise how manipulative her family unit had been, she started to see she wasn't the only child that was abused. As an adult, she began to realise how her sister was a primary caregiver to their mother. Annie began to realise that once she had healed the wounds created in her childhood, she was freer than her sister would ever be. She tried to reach out to her sisters and tell them who their mother really was. Her younger sister was able to recognise she had a different role, and she took a lot of blame, but couldn't see that their mother was abusive. Her middle sister was horrified in the role that she played when it was pointed out to her, but the ties of the mother ran so deeply, she was never ever able to break free. Annie found herself being gaslit by her siblings as their mother became frail. Their mother proclaiming that she could see the error of her ways to everyone except Annie herself. And as she tried to go no contact, her sisters would proclaim that their mother hadn't meant it, and how she told them how sorry she was and that she really did love Annie. Annie continued to hold a firm boundary and grey rock her mother, her youngest sister understanding, but the middle one never forgiving her for attempting to abandon their mother in old age. Emotionally abusive mothers are manipulative, controlling and jealous, and they parent from their wounds, abandoning their daughters emotionally, dumping the shame that they have themselves on the child, ultimately betraying them. The emotionally abusive mother shames her daughter to protect her fragile sense of self, and her children become ashamed of themselves and often their bodies, criticised for their hair, the colour of their eyes, what they're wearing, the colour of the lipstick. Or she might pick on something that she isn't happy about in herself and body shaming her daughter. She might continuously tell her daughter that somebody else's daughter is better than her, that she has a better job or a better education. Perhaps she did something for her mother or took her mother out or bought her nice gifts, constantly comparing her daughter to someone else. The emotionally abusive mother erodes her daughter's character, telling her how she should behave, who she can be friends with, and criticising all her friends and love interests. There's no wonder then that there's a high chance the daughter of an emotionally abusive parent is unlucky in love, choosing abusive partners. To them, this isn't an abusive relationship, as growing up, she's learnt how to bow to the needs of the mother, walking on eggshells, or not to speak out of turn as she will be shouted at. She learned as a young child she was the lowest in the pecking order, as her siblings got the best of everything and she got the hand-me-downs. She learnt during her childhood it was safer to stay small and say nothing, and she may have learnt that she needed to ask permission from her abusive mother for everything. The daughter of an emotionally abusive mother will have been triangulated with everyone, particularly her siblings, and her siblings may become the enablers, smearing her character in order for them to stay in the mother's inner circle and not to experience the fate of their sister. The triangulation may occur with a parent alienation, and this doesn't have to be when a relationship is over. A child can grow up in a family unit where they might not have a relationship with their father because the victim story that they are told throughout their lives. They grow up protecting their mother's story, believing she is the victim, when in reality it is her who is the toxic element. I will also link my video titled "What Happens to the Aging Narcissist? Do they get better with age or go sour like milk?" As she gets older, the emotionally abusive mother creates a life where she states she's lonely or helpless to manipulate her children into spending all of their time with her over their own family. And the emotionally abusive mother manipulates her daughter and her other children. They're controlled in every area of their life, and should they attempt to step out of the family unit and live independently, they might be subjected to a rage or an attack from her or other family members. For the emotionally abusive mother, her children are pawns that she's created and that will validate her, will soothe her and will protect her from her own fragile sense of self. She reigns over them, taking the power and control of their lives. It is their mother the children check in with. It is their mother the children pass the gossip to, or the achievements of their own children, giving her currency that she needs for supply. Eliza said her and her siblings never had a relationship with their father. They were put to bed by 6 p.m. before their father got home from work, as her mother was tired, and they were given medication to make them sleepy. When she spoke to her therapist, Eliza said she saw the reaction and she thought, that's odd. So she spoke to her mother about being medicated. Her mother denied that it happened and said that she'd made the story up. And this was a turning point for Eliza, as up until this point she'd always thought the manipulative parent was her father, as that is all she'd heard growing up. And Jodie said, looking back on her childhood, what she sees now as a mother who never had anything positive to say about other people. She said her mother told her late in life that when they moved to a new home, everything had changed, that she'd been happy with her life before the move. Jodie recalled the name calling of the neighbours and how she also recalled her grandmother doing something similar. She heard a lot of "who do they think they are?" She said now what she can see was an insecurity which she realised was driven from her mother's wounds of shame. These had destroyed her mother's life and had devastating effects on her and her siblings. To the outside world, they have a perfect relationship, but behind closed doors, things are very different. The daughter of the emotionally abusive mother is the shield to the outside world. She was taught at a young age to keep the family secrets, even though she doesn't realise that's her role. And just like other abusive relationships, the mother is wearing a mask. She understands the value of each family member, and she has her own entourage. She plays the victim. If they're lucky, the children will get out, or it might just be one that manages to escape. And the abusive mother might get lucky and be able to manipulate the husbands of her daughters and use them in her incestuous relationships with her children, dragging them into player games, bullying other family members and creating smear campaigns. The daughter of the emotionally abusive mother is failed by her. She's robbed of a childhood. One person recalled her mother telling her the story that at the age of 5, she went to a jumble sale and came back with a bundle of clothes for her mother, claiming that her mother never seemed to have anything new. She said she heard the story and thought, wow, what a thing to do at the age of 5. But the longer she sat with it, she started to question what she'd actually seen and what she'd heard from her mother that would have prompted her to do such an act. She said, looking back at her own children, she knew that if they'd been out, they might have bought her back a small gift, but they would have concentrated on the toy section, not have spent all their money on clothes for her. The daughter of the emotionally abusive mother has been failed by her. She knows that she's different. She feels the difference in the way that she is treated. She knows she will be punished in a different way to her siblings. She also knows it doesn't matter what she does, it will never be enough. And she will always crave the love and attention bestowed on her siblings. As a child, she knows that she is powerless to do anything about it. As an adult, she carries these same wounds into her relationships, but she's usually the only person in the family tribe that is prepared to call out her mother's behaviour when she sees it. However, her siblings have been told from an early age that she's the odd one out, the one who always caused trouble, who let everyone down. So her siblings, unless they have a similar role, can't hear her words. And the abusive mother is also very clever in smearing her character to partners of the siblings, and they join in with the games she experienced in childhood. We have 3 core wounds: abandonment, shame, and betrayal. Learn to talk to them. When you empower them, you empower yourself and naturally become repellent to manipulators. If you found this video helpful in some way, please like and share and consider subscribing. It's a little click, but it helps me so much get the content out in front of people like yourself that might need it. I'm going to link my course, Grieve the Past, the Present and the Future, below in the description box. It helps you pick up the pieces and acknowledge and help yourself get back on course with your life. I'm sending you loads and loads of love.